Hello, awesome folks. I hope you're having just an absolutely magnificent day today. Today I'm taking a look at my top 10 short flicks from the 80s and 90s in science fiction. This is a sequel to the classic ones before 1980. For you folks, I will link you to that one in the comments below. For you folks, so this one is pretty strong. I liked it lots. This decade pair from the 80s to in the 90s through 2000 has a lot of classic sci-fi stuff. And then next week we'll look at the top 10 from the modern era, the 2000s for you folks. So anyway, so let's get started. This one actually has an honorable mention and so forth. Now, as a reminder, this is a spoiler-free review. I'm not going to be doing a deep dive on any of these. So this is going to be pretty fast. It's not going to take that much of your time. But it's good stuff, like it lots, so let's get started. First is an honorable mention. It's for Total Recall, starring Arnold Schwarzenegger for you folks, and it's directed by Paul Verhoeven. It's good stuff, loved it a lot, and so forth. I think it's a fun retelling of a Philip K. Dick short story for you folks. Loved it lots. We can remember it for you wholesale, which I've read and reviewed for you folks on this channel. So if you're interested in that, check it out. But I liked it. Thought it was great stuff and good stuff. Loved it lots. But I didn't see it in theaters because I was a teen at the time, so I saw it as an adult on DVD. Running it, and then now I own it too. Good stuff, liked it lots. So that is Total Recall for you folks on the honorable mention. Now let's move to the top 10 proper. Right, number 10 is Star Trek IV, The Voyage Home. Now, Star Trek, the first movie, hit before this did. And that's in the previous one, in the previous era, but it didn't chart because even though it has some value, it's gorgeous. It's definitely well shot. I think its special effects really hold up. It's slow pacing. It's meandering. It's got a lot of times just moving around the starship. And its central concept and plot are just a Star Trek episode writ large. And I don't mind that. I think Star Trek is good at some great stuff, but nevertheless, I just don't think that was really worth it. But this one, the Star Trek IV, the Voyage Home, in the 80s, absolute classic in my opinion. It made a lot of money. A lot of my fans made it because by coming home to tell the idea and the culturally relevant story of trying to find whales after they've been hunted to death in order to stop future community from dying. I think it stands up well. I think it's definitely strong stuff. And unlike a lot of things, there just aren't a lot of fights here. It's really just more of a comedy set in our era. So that is The Voyage Home by Star Trek IV. Loved it lots for you folks. Made a lot of fans. There are a lot of people that went out to see this that weren't Star Trek fans. They just like the ideas and the concepts and the fun stuff. And were brought in by their friends, right? So it's the one that everybody has seen, right? And so forth. So number 9 is also directed by Paul Verhoeven. So I know a lot of folks who think this is his best work of the 3 sci-fi stories. It's called RoboCop. It has a lot of cultural relevance. The idea here, again, no spoilers, so I won't go too deep into it. Basically, this is a commercial retelling of a GNU story that's set in a near future Detroit that's more of a dystopian. So it has a lot of future stuff like the commercials and such, and it's definitely fun stuff. It's about a cop who becomes a robot. As you can tell from the title, it's more of a cyborg. But yeah, he becomes a robot. He dies, and he is now turning into a cyborg. So it's his journey. It's an absolute classic. It's rated R. I didn't see it in theaters because it was in the 80s, and I was probably like 17 at the time, right? I was still living at home. But again, I saw it on DVDs and Blu-rays and such, and I have absolute classic, fun stuff. Love it lots, and that's RoboCop for you folks. It's definitely one of the things that has kept RoboCop, I think, alive today is because of its cultural relevance. Which, even though its special effects might have dimmed it and graded it, has not. So I think that aspect has really stood the test of time. There's a Criterion edition of it, for example. All right, so number 8 is Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan. This is the action-adventure, the submarine film. This is one that put the Star Trek films on a map in a major way. Instead of the idea of the good stuff is always good, because it came right after the one, which made a lot of money in theaters, actually, but not as much as they were expecting, because it was right after Star Wars. So this is definitely a classic of classics. It's the best Star Trek film of the era, in my opinion, and the highest hitting one on the list. just as a warning. But it's great stuff. And again, it was an opportunity to say it's the submarine theme. It's a 3D adventure in space. There's hunting. There's people going some bad, nasty stuff, and so forth. No spoilers, but it's great stuff. Loved it lots. And the people who made it and wrote it and directed it weren't Star Trek fans, and they made a great Star Trek film. One of the best. All right, number 7 in my hearts, but number 1 in my list is the Starship Troopers from the 90s. I think this is Paul Verhoeven's best. It's a little the acting's not as great as the other two, but the concept of it's great. It's a remaking of the novel, which I've reviewed for you for this channel from the 60s. It's an absolute classic of classics that put space marines and space military warfare on the map in a major way in science fi. And so it really sort of pushed the boundaries of that genre. Love it lots. It's my favorite genre, literally. And I think that the social commentary of this future fascist state is so strong, so well done from the commercials. And no, would you like to know more at the ends of it? I love it so much and how it's told. So this is my opinion, just an absolute classic of classics. And it's my favorite Paul Verhoeven of the trilogy, Total Recall and RoboCop and Starship Troopers at number 7. So number 6 is Mad Max 2, The Road Warrior. This is a sequel to Mad Max, which made a ton of money and put him on the map in a major way. It's a post-apocalyptic film set in Australia in the future and such. And the idea here, no spoilers, but the idea here is that Mad Max was a cop, and now he's fallen. No kids, no family, no wives and such. He's fallen into more of a self-personality, only cares about himself, doesn't care about others, and so forth. But and now he's in this post-apocalyptic world where oil and sort of stuff is very, very light, and it's now a key part of civilization and culture, and that sort of a thing. So that is Mad Max 2, The Road Warrior. It's also an absolute classic for action too. It's one of the best action films and one of the best sci-fi films too. And the Mad Max, the original one, from the 70s, made a ton of money and was, until the Blair Witch Project, the greatest selling film based, one that makes the most money based on its cost as a percentage. It made so much money off very little budget. All right, so the next one is number 5. Now we're in our top 5 stuff. This one you might disagree with, and that's Blade Runner at number 5. Which is again a retelling of a Philip K. thing in here. The novel "Do Androids Dream of an Electric Sheep." I've also read it for you and reviewed it. You can link to it. Check it out. But it's fun stuff. Absolute classic of selling for Philip K. Dick, and it's so fun stuff. It didn't sell well in the theaters. It's sort of a film noir meets science fiction set in the future, also dystopian. Where our main character is a cop trying to find a bad guys who are androids that look like us, and so he's trying to find them out. And he is something that is known as a runner. For you folks, great stuff, absolute classic. But it didn't sell well in the theaters. And even though it's gorgeous, and a lot of films are influenced kind of like Metropolis. It's sort of the modern Metropolis. But my major issue with it is that it is slow, just like film noir. Star Trek 1. It is a slow-paced film. Right. It's great stuff, gorgeous stuff, loving the ending. It's an absolute classic in that area. And it's sitting in my top 5, so it's that. But it's just not my number 1. I know a lot of people love this, and it's their favorite number 1 sci-fi film. It's not mine from this era, or generally. But if it's yours, I'm fine. I'm not going to lose any sleep. It's your list. And number 4 might be a little controversial, but it's E.T. the Extraterrestrial by Stephen King. By Steven Spielberg, rather, as the director. I love it so much. It's a classic. It made tons of money. It put him on the map as a as a maker of films. It was a best-selling. At the time, it was the best-selling film in theaters after Jaws, also his best-selling film, also hit. And then a lot of another film. That's a little bit later on. But it sort of reminds us of how much Spielberg is a great guy, great director, great stuff, great scening. Drew Barrymore has some great stuff. The idea of some of the central characters and conceits and such. He is just so great. Again, no spoilers, but the kid-friendly interpretation of a Spielberg. I love it so much. And so that is a friendly E.T. Love it so much. It's also more grounded, and it made a lot of money too, and such. I did see this in theaters because I was a kid, and I remember good stuff. And now the top 3 times. Alrighty, number 3 is The Empire Strikes Back. It's Star Wars 2. And Star Wars hit and made a lot of money, and there were a ton of Star Wars clones, and it sort of booted a Star Wars series. This is the best one of the sequels. The Empire Strikes Back made a lot of money. It was a darker, more interesting tone. The inchings, the twists, the darker tone. The Empire being made not to be just, iron-jawed bad guys, but actual proper people that are proper villains, right? And they're better than they might think. Absolute stuff, absolute classic. Star Wars 2, the Wrath, Star Wars 7, I guess, 5, if you will. The Empire Strikes Back, the next one. It's an absolute classic. And it was not written initially, if you'll recall, by Lucas, or directed by him too. And I think that's a good thing. I think him stepping away from this a little bit, I think helped, if you will. So that's it. Now number 2, I know some people that think that this is the best one from the genre of the era. Well, I tell you what my actual one is. I don't think you'll really argue that much. And it's Terminator 2 T2. Made a lot of money from the early 90s. Recast Arnold Schwarzenegger as a sequel to the Terminator, and so forth. It's an absolute classic of classics. It's directed by James Cameron, just like the first one was. And this idea here is that in the future, after a dystopian robots take over, in the first film, they send back somebody to help us defend against an assassination attempt by the Terminator. And here, again, the basic concept is the same too. The future resistance, just like the Star Wars and Rebellion Alliance and that sort of a thing, is also here too. They are sending back an ally, and just to help out with an assassination attempt, not only here for John Connor rather than his mother before she was born. So that's the twist. Love it so much. No spoilers. Please do not spoil people that have not seen T2. But it's such a strong stuff, and the characters. Linda does such a great job here. Him, such a strong actress, such a strong turn from the first film to this one. Love it so much. It's also like Mad Max 2, one of the best action films of all time. Although I think this is actually a worse of an action film than Mad Max. Sorry. But that's okay. Sorry, T2 fans, but I think it's a better sci-fi film, which is what's ranking a little higher on the list. And then number 1. And when I tell you what number 1 is, you probably won't be that surprised once I start to talk about it, why it's my number 1. And I've alluded to it earlier, and that is Jurassic Park by Steven Spielberg. It's also a retelling of a novel by Michael Crichton, which I've read, but I read it back in college, so I haven't read it recently, so I haven't reviewed it for this channel. But it's an absolute classic of classics. It made, again, just like E.T. Jaws, reset the genre for the most. Sold absolute classic of classics. And this is a science fiction because the idea of retelling, in my opinion, of recapturing DNA and dinosaurs in a living model and such is definitely a sci-fi concept, right? And so that's why I consider it a sci-fi. Absolute lover. Just like the other ones, it created an absolute classic of classics. It still stands up. The special effects, you don't need to have a special edition. They still stand up. You can go see them today or watch them at home. I watched this in the theaters. Such a strong thing. And the sequels too. It also created an entire series from Jurassic World to the fourth one that's coming out here in a year or two. It's an absolute classic of classics, and just like Planet of the Apes and Star Wars, it created an entire series of stuff. And there's even a video game based on the Jurassic World stuff that I love too. Absolute classic of classics, strong stuff. Number 1. Jurassic Park, absolute stood the test of time by Steven Spielberg. So those are my top 10. Here they are once again, really quickly. Honorable mention on Total Recall. Number 10, Star Trek 4, The Voyage Home. Number 9, RoboCop. Number 8, Star Trek 4, 2, The Wrath of Khan. Number 7, Starship Troopers. Number 6, Mad Max 2, The Road Warrior. Number 5, Blade Runner. Number 4, E.T. Number 3, The Empire Strikes Back. Number 2, T2, and number 1, Jurassic Park. And there you are for you, folks. So what are your top 10 from those 2 decades, the 80s and the 90s? So what did you think of my list? Did you agree or disagree? Just let me know in the comments. Have you seen these films? Just let me know those two in the comments below. If you like this video, why not let your friends know? Hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, and then also if you're feeling frisky, hit that bell icon too. I'd be notified of my videos each week. Particularly folks that are like sci-fi films or these films, those sorts of things, or just general stuff like that, or sci-fi stuff generally like me. So there you are. I'll go ahead and leave you to it. As a reminder, this channel's name is The Worst Thing About New Books. It's a quote by a French philosopher, Jacques Schubert and friends who said in his book, who said that the worst thing about them was that they kept us from reading the old ones, right? And this is definitely older stuff from the 80s and 90s. Got things that have stood the test of time, some things that have been forgot. So I definitely like going back to these things and going back and rereading, talking to them about what their thoughts are. Warrior folks. And then I just want to pause and end this video by thanking you so much just for taking some time out of your video and investing it, right? Because we all have so many things, right, that are happening in our lives, and we're pulled in so many different directions. So the fact that you spent this time with me, that's incredibly humbling. And I appreciate it so much. So thanks again, and have an amazing day.